as you can imagine, it takes a number of people to pull the service together every week, and I want to take this opportunity to thank our volunteers. At first base, we have Bill Bridwell. At second base, we have Jack Street. At third base, Jennifer Parkinson. And shortstop, Laura Beebe. Welcome to, and, yeah, there you go. Playing the opening prelude or the opening song at the ballpark is our own Peter Halperin. And with that, we will have our prelude. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is the Reverend Janet Newton, and I am not normally this informally attired, but in the spirit of the morning, in the spirit of baseball, the theme we're exploring today, I wanted to represent, and I appreciate that Linda is joining me in that as well. So, thank you. As she lights our chalice. This service came together in part because I started thinking about how, when I look out at our world, I sometimes look out at the fault lines and the fissures and the egos and the inequalities and the obsessions with power and wealth. And I look at a world and I wonder how it got to be this way, and I wonder what it means to come back together. So sometimes I use this language a lot. I talk about the phrase 21st century religious landscape as though there's something radically, alteringly different from what was 20th century religious landscape, which is of course true because that's always been the case with every religious landscape throughout history. I think about, and I've talked about, the loss of playgrounds that teach civic engagement and that teach us to sit, give us the capacity to sit with and listen to ideas that strike us as wrong or misguided, and maybe they are. And maybe we have lost some of our tools and the toning of our muscles. Maybe we've forgotten how to stretch or go to the preseason work. But I'm starting to wonder, and this service today is a reflection of that, if I've been focused too much on rebuilding community as a thing that has been lost, rather than exposing community, where we notice where and when it's still vibrant and alive and still teeming with the possibility of personal and collective spiritual transformation. Where is it always and still and forever happening? So today's service is about releasing the narrative that says something powerful is lost and we don't know how to bring it back, and leans instead into a narrative that says, as humans, we yearn to connect to one another and to sources of divine and holy inspiration, to nature and awe and wonder and one another. Where does that exist in our world right now? It's going out into the community and noticing communities and connection and joy and laughter and suffering and calling them thus. So let's play ball. Because it was at a Woo Sox game that I first started waking up to what already was. May we join in that spirit today as we worship and find worth together. And let's start in our first inning with our hymn number 6, Just As Long As I Have Breath. Please rise and embody our spirit. When you go somewhere new, what makes you feel welcomed there? If we look around our space, what do you think we have that would make people coming for the first time feel welcomed and included? Are we missing things that would help new folks feel welcome? When I was serving the church in Worcester, I went to my first Woo Sox game, and it happened to be right around Pride, so it was June-ish. I went by myself. I didn't know Worcester very well, but my experience with central Massachusetts had led me to believe that it's pretty purpley red. And I was a little nervous about what that meant for me as a queer person showing up at a baseball game in the middle of Worcester. And I walked in the door of the ballpark and I sat down in a seat. I'm one of those people who wishes I knew more about these things than I do. I have like childhood understanding of most sportsy things. And there was evidence in the stadium right there, publicly, huge banners celebrating Pride, an opportunity for me to purchase memorabilia that would definitely encourage Pride. There were official signs, there was merchandise. I went by myself as a shy extrovert, knowing nothing about the expectations and practices of different seating areas, how you're supposed to behave in the subcultures of the ballpark. I didn't know how to be in the know. I didn't know how to be included or excluded. But I was made to be included right away by just a sign that made me feel comfortable enough that I could sit down next to people that I didn't know and start a conversation with them. Maybe this is not a place where I have to be half of myself. Maybe this is a place where I can connect with those who are around me. I think that we forget to appreciate pluralism for its gifts, and we become sometimes obsessed with the demonizing and dehumanizing aspects that show up in people's actions, and forget that sometimes those actions are underpinned by deeply held values that we may actually share with one another. A desire to connect, a desire to feel welcome, a desire to make people feel understood. Sometimes we get to it very different ways, and sometimes those ways feel unwelcoming. But I think that we have within us the capacity to look around and notice that we are people who value different perspectives of truth, of getting to someplace important, and of connecting with one another. What are the signs we can give each other that show that, as well as something as simple as a flag, or a ballpark suggesting that there's something to be done here? I invite us to ponder that as we continue on in our service today.
I forgot one important player when I was introducing the volunteers. Playing catcher, if you noticed when you reached down for your hymnal, some of you reached down into a little pocket next to your chair. And that is due to Laura Beebe and the Circle Snooze, what is it called? Social Action Network. They made these little hymnal pockets. So, playing catcher, Laura Beebe. Why Do You Come, John? By Reverend Victoria Stafford. I knew a man once who came to church every Sunday. Now, you may find nothing remarkable in this, but think of it. A man who came every single Sunday, and it was not that he lacked other things to do. I knew him only in the last years of his life. A birthright Unitarian, a retired geologist, who, when he was at church, was a volunteer for Amnesty International, for the local food bank, for the Civil Liberties Union, for the Family Planning Clinic, the AIDS Project, for the Unitarian Universalist district we are part of, for the Audubon Society, and a member of a splendid chorus. Busier than any of us still holding full-time jobs, he was committed, effective, clear about what he could, would, and by his own standards, should contribute to causes that he cared for, the world and the people that he cared for. But what set him apart from all of us was that he came every single Sunday. And because of his hearing loss, I think, more than any sense of his own importance, he sat in the front row. Why do you come, John? In all kinds of weather, when you're well and when you're not, when you like the guest speaker and when you know you won't. Why do you come every Sunday, I asked him, not long before he died. His answer was straightforward, just like the man himself. I come, he said, because somebody might miss me if I don't. He said it in a way that was not arrogant at all, but genuinely and honestly. He was the kind of person who saw it was his duty and his privilege to welcome newcomers on Sunday morning. Not because he needed more friends himself. The man was 80 years old, with a lifetime of friends and colleagues and acquaintances to spare. He had plenty of friends already, more than he could handle. He did it not because he wanted to evangelize the visitors or grow the church. On the contrary, he loved and missed the tiny congregation he'd joined in 1955. He felt a little lost with so many new faces and a little sad at all the changes. He greeted people as they came and steered them toward the minister, the coffee pot, which we all know is very important, the Sunday school, the guest book, the pledge cards, and the sign-up sheets, because he felt it was the right and the only thing to do. You know, it's like when people come into your home. You welcome them as if nothing in that moment matters more. He got up on Sundays expecting to work hard and to make others feel at home. He came with that in mind. And he was right. After he died, we missed him and when he did not come. And do you know what happened? The Sunday after his memorial, someone new, who had never met John and now would never have the chance, walked right in and sat in his empty place in that front row. A whole family just sat right down as if they owned the place, as if they had every right to be there, as if we were glad to see them. Two women new in town and their toddler and their baby. They came hoping there was room, and John himself would have been delighted.
Why do you come to church? Why do you do anything that feeds the Spirit? Do you know those things that are feeding your spirit, or do they creep up on you? That's what happened to me most recently. I am a dilettante when it comes to most things in my life. I know enough to appreciate what's happening, but I've never acquired the specialized knowledge of the true aficionado of almost everything that interests me. I'm not somebody who tracks stats of sporting goods. I did once win my school's season-long football pool, but it was based on those childhood recollections of who used to be good, because I don't know any players' names. Why do you come to church or go to baseball games, or why are you here? When I went to that first Blue Sox game, one of the things that I realized was that I would never likely get to Fenway. I grew up in New Mexico, and so we didn't actually have sports teams that we were supposed to root for. Well, no, you were supposed to root for the Broncos above us or the Cowboys below us. That's intentional. Not very Universalist, though. So the point was that we didn't know, wasn't ingrained in us what it felt like to have a sports team. And so I moved to New England and was like, what is happening here? What is with all of this? And I knew that I would probably never, ever have a chance to go to Fenway to see the real baseball team play, in theory. It felt inaccessible to me in the same way that many of the things from my youth felt inaccessible to me. They had become something of prestige. Long ago, purchased tickets that were able to get passed down, or people who had the ability through corporate connections to get themselves into the stadium. It is one of the most expensive ballparks to visit. And so I went to a minor league game thinking, I wonder what this is all about. I wanted to know more about what it was like to be part of a community that had a minor league team. One of the things that we ministers do at General Assembly every year is we go out on a baseball outing to whatever team is playing, because it happens in the springtime. So if it's a big sports area, we might go to the major league ballpark there, if they're not that expensive. Or we often go support college and minor league teams. And one of the things that we realized is that those places, the ones where you had the farm teams, the people who were coming up, the people who hadn't yet gone to the big league, the show, those people, it didn't matter. We were there with them. I didn't know a thing about who was playing, but everything about what they were doing, from the organ to the cheering, to the gratitude, to the sense of loss, to the hopes, to the devastations, felt like I had gone to something that was approaching a spiritual experience. I was connecting with the people who were next to me, having conversations as a shy introvert with people I had never met over this team I knew nothing about. They knew nothing about. They also had bought tickets that day. We were laughing and crying. We hugged each other at the end. There is something to be said for coming together in community in places that are not where you think community will be. And there is something to be said for trying to create those openings up of community, for those witnessing of where it's actually happening. So, connected to that, I've had to ask this question, why do I go? Why do I go? Many times over the last few months in a different setting. So this will likely surprise no one who has any experience with my particular neurodivergence, but my dilettante behavior is such that I can do a lot of things in a wide variety of arenas. I can make a really good loaf of sourdough bread and the best chicken soup on the island, according to my daughter's classmates, who are, of course, the true arbiters of taste. But sometimes I forget how to cook. I knit really well if I want to, and moderately well sometimes, and not at all quite often. I can grow a phenomenal tomato and put up a fence and build a chicken coop out of random pallets and still not be able to keep the dang rabbits from eating my peas, so I neglected to plant them this year entirely. In my life, I have ridden horses competitively, coached debate, studied Arabic, dallied with the hammered dulcimer, ballroom dancing, quilting. I have tried to play the guitar off and on since college, and I have occasionally remembered how much I love to sing. I can't do it all, but I can do it serially and repetitively over the course of my life. That's what my brain likes me to do. You would think that someone who knows the things that make them feel whole, like singing, for example, you would think that they would know how to lean into those. But in my experience, I'm not alone in forgetting how to fill my cup up again when it starts to feel depleted. The places to look for spiritual connection, sustenance. We're forever navigating the things that are needed of us, and we sometimes forget to look for the things that we need, and we can find them in the most unlikely of places. So last summer, I planned to spend the year focusing on a single hobby. I was gonna play music. I was gonna do that in August. That was my August resolution. And the week of my first guitar lesson was also the week last September that my life with my dad fell apart. So suddenly, what had been intended as a spiritual practice or a discipline that I might enjoy became life or death to me. I put every emotion that I could not express onto 6 strings. Ironically, my guitar teacher has suggested multiple times that I sometimes don't seem to play with much emotional awareness, even though I think I'm putting it all in there. I started going to open mics because I wanted to get better at being both flawed and vulnerable and okay in public. And my open mic experience is one where I am overly apologetic and overly ambitious. Let me try this thing. Oops, no, not that, I say into the microphone publicly every time. There has not been a single open mic in which I have not apologized, flubbed, or made a big deal out of it, and kept going. What if I chose not to apologize or make a big deal out of it? I said to a friend who'd come to a recent one that part of my practice is being deeply imperfect publicly. She said she'd never have known if I didn't call attention to it. So I leave each time asking myself, what am I trying to do with this? Why did I come? Why am I here today? Why am I there on those days? What do I need to learn from this experience? Where can I find something that keeps me going spiritually through this practice? What am I trying to do? Am I trying to demonstrate my imperfections or accept them myself and move on into what gives me life and hope? I wish that I have for each and every one of you is that you will find whatever it is that does the same for you, that you will accept your full and flawed self and love it anyway, and that you will look amongst you at the full and flawed selves sitting all around, and that you will love them anyway as well. There is so much spiritual practice in that. The questions that we are forced to ask as a result. Do I do this for ego or for ministry? Do I do this to connect or to disconnect? Do I do this because I can't talk about it any other way? Do I do this by myself because I'm afraid to do it with other people? Is anonymity helping me stay whole and human? The ball game teaches us that the fans may stick with you in the junk because they've been in the junk too. I think that is one of the main lessons that I have learned from my experiences at Open Mic over the last several months. And I invite us to think about that as we ponder. Well, this is changing, isn't it? I was going to sing right now, but I'm not going to do that right now. We changed it to make it the postlude, I'm sorry. So what I would like to invite us to do, actually, is to take a moment and think about that question: why do I come to this? Or why do I do anything that feeds my spirit? And I invite you to either sit with that question in silent meditation or to turn to somebody near you and share what it is that helps you stay whole and holy. Take some time connecting right now.
I said I go outside every morning and see if my plants are coming up from the seeds that I scattered all over my flower garden. That makes me happy. They're coming up.
Glad to hear that. We're just looking at our rabbits destroying our plants. That's all. It doesn't make me feel better. I'm going to have to fence a lot of things next year. But they're enjoying it. See, we're feeding the rabbits, keeping them, well, alive and well.
We have some little baby rabbits too running around. Yes.
Yes. I saw one that was like half the size of my fist, and it was still, and it looked like a couple of pine cones together, kind of darker fur than you would expect. And I had to go over there, and sure enough, it was a baby that was just left there for a while and made its way back, I'm sure. But anyway, it was so small.
Oh.
So has the weather brightened there?
Yeah. Not much. Not much.
Yeah.
And it's cold. It's up
Pastor
to 6.
Turkile, in his recent book on modern rituals, recalled a conversation between John O'Donohue and the Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg, recorded in 1998. And he invited the audience through that conversation to think about connection. He said, I can't believe in any of this stuff about creating community. I think the whole project of trying to build community is misplaced. I think community is. It is ontologically there. So the project is more about awakening. For him, connection is remembered or revealed because we are already dangerously involved with each other in an incredibly intimate but unseen way. And his takeaway, Casper ter Kuile's takeaway, was that's what it means to be human. Connection just is. We are each connected to every other thing. For John O'Donohue, it was about love awakening in our lives. He wrote in Anamkara, In the night of your heart, it is like the dawn breaking within you. Where before there was anonymity, now there is intimacy. Where before there was fear, now there is courage. It takes a lot of courage to open yourself up to community. It takes a lot of courage to notice what's already there, or to move through your fear that something is missing, that has been lost, has been left behind. The reasons you came to church in 1955 may no longer be the reasons you come now. And sometimes it makes us feel as though we don't have a home, or we don't know how to make one, or we don't know how to reclaim it. Sometimes even though I said that we need to remember, as we look around, that we have this abundance of people who are whole and flawed and human and worthy, sometimes we still need to protect ourselves in those spaces. We can love somebody and still refuse to let them hurt us. We can connect to in important ways and still need to do things on our own. Sometimes we have to maintain barriers or articulate strong boundaries for our own well-being, our own hearts or theirs. Maybe people that we love have made barriers towards us, and we wish we could mend them with double-sided tape and Gorilla Glue and mom spit, which we know is really powerful. The levels of cutoff in America right now have been described as unusually high. Cutoff in families. What does that mean? When we have people cut us off, it can make us feel as though we have done something wrong, and maybe we have. That doesn't mean we're bad people. It means we may need to start looking elsewhere for the support we know we need. It means creating new families, which is something that throughout history queer people have been traditionally good at after being cast out, but also immigrant families, people moving to new places, people who need to find new people to rely on. And we're sometimes doing it in unintentional ways as a society. I was recently proctoring AP tests and had to witness as somebody had to stare at their dead name on a piece of paper while they were taking a test that was supposed to assess their capacity to think. My heart broke. Or when a community relies upon you for labor, but they don't know your name. Or when you get pulled over for driving on a suspended license because Massachusetts is a place you can get a license as a non-citizen, but have you tried to get a license recently? Those of you who have the same privilege that I do of being born here or speaking the dominant language and already having a driver's test from passing the driving tests in other states. So many reasons why I might have a difficult time moving through my community. I struggle. How is it possible that others would not? I bring this up because we have to remember that everybody around us needs our support and needs us to notice them. That is what I'm saying when I say we don't need to rebuild community. We need to notice what's already there and the ways in which we are or are not creating a sense of welcome to people who are different or the same or unique and flawed and full anyway. There are lots of different ways we can get cut off from one another, and the remedy is to connect in new ways. We may leave a runner stranded, like all of my unfinished projects, or the people who are no longer in my life, or the boundaries I've had to hold. The pain is real. The lost potential is real. But the most important thing is that we have all been there. We have all let somebody down, and we've all experienced loss. And so if we know one thing, it is that every single person in this room can share that experience with us. We have been let down and we have let ourselves down. We have dreamed big and we have failed. We have stranded ourselves on second base or failed to bring the runner home. That's okay. What's going to happen the next time we go to bat? This feels like a bit of a mismatch with what I just said. But I want to invite us to stretch into the seventh inning, if we would. If you would join with me, stand up and imagine that we are now in a ballpark of people who have experienced the worst losing streak of a team ever. It feels awful. We're still showing up at the game, and we are still rooting them on. And I put lyrics on your order of service because you don't know what team to root for unless you have it in front of you there. So it goes, take me out to the ball game, take me out with the crowd, buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back, so let's root for connection. If we forget, it's a shame. Then it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Can we do it again? Yeah. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back, so let's root for connection. If we forget, it's a shame. Then it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. I invite you to take a seat. I want to share with you a story, and then I want to sing a song, and we're going to compress because one team is so far ahead that they're never going to catch up. So we're not going to get to the 9th inning necessarily. This story comes from the book that I referenced on the top of your order of service. It's called All Things Shining by 2 academics who are talking about the classics. And it's their epilogue. They say, 2 students had studied for many years with a wise old master. One day the master said to them, students, the time has come for you to go out into the world. Your life there will be felicitous if you find in it all things shining. The students left the master with a mixture of sadness and excitement, and each of them went their separate way. Many years later, they met up by chance, and they were excited to see one another again, and each was excited to learn how the other's life had gone. Said the first to the second glumly, I have learned to see many shining things in the world, but alas, I remain unhappy. For I also find many sad and disappointing things, and I feel I have failed to heed the master's advice. Perhaps I will never be filled with happiness and joy because I am simply unable to find all things shining. Said the second to the first, radiant with happiness. All things are not shining, but all the shining things are. So in the spirit of public imperfection, Peter and I are going to play this song as our postlude/benediction. It is called Betty's Diner, and we thought we were going to plug me in, and we'll see how it sounds. The chorus is on your order of service. It'll show up several times, and you're invited to join in once you get the hang of it. Counter in a joint called Betty's Diner, crumb and checker tablecloths, one steamy window pane. She got the job that shaky fall, and after hours she'll ride till dawn. With a nod and a smile she'll serve them all. Here we are all in one place, the wants and wounds of the human race. Despair and hopes it face to face when you're coming from the cold. Let her fill your cup with something kind, eggs and toast like bread and wine. She's heard it all, so she don't mind. just new saxophones, but he swears he's leaving quality control for the Chicago scene or New Orleans, where they still play righteous horns. Here we are all in one place, the wants and wounds of the human race. Despair and hope sit face to face while you coming from the cold. Let her fill your cup with something kind, eggs and toast like bread and wine. She's heard it all, so she don't mind. Jack's daddy's here after work. To get past high school, he's the first. His big hands look comfortable with a hammer or a pen. Emma leans in and kissed his cheek, and when she did, his knees got weak. Miranda smiled at them and winked. Here we are all in one place, the wants and wounds of the human race. Despair and hope sit face to face when you're coming from the cold. Let her fill your cup with something kind, eggs and toast like bread and wine. She's heard it all, so she don't mind. You never know who'll be your witness. Never know who grants forgiveness. Look to heaven or sit with us. Deidre bites her lip and frowns. She works the stop and go downtown. She's pretty good at the crossword page, and she paints her eyes blue-black. Tristan comes along sometimes, small for his age, and he's barely 5, and she loves him like her mama lion. Veda used to drink a lot, almost lost it all before she stopped. Comes in at night with her friend Mike, who runs the crisis line. Michael toured Saigon and back, hair the color of smoke and ash. Their heads are bowed, their hands are clasped. Now the storm has passed. Here we are all in one place, the wants and wounds of the human race. Despair and hope sit face to face when you're coming from the cold. Let her fill your cup with something kind, eggs and toast like bread and wine. She's heard it all, so she don't mind. May you all find that diner, ballpark, wherever it is that you need to be connected. May it also happen in this chapel every Sunday and in the off days as well. Amen.